Before the days of having to watch everything you say lest someone whine about your unconscious bias, or even call you a bigot, when I was a wee lad in the late 2000s, we had a very colorful vocabulary. Hey Tantris, what you playing? Oh, just the new Mario game that came out last week. Ha! You like Nintendo? Gay! In the last 10 years alone, gay went from the word for bro comedy to one people now freak out about even when used in a positive context. My dear mother, a 90s raver who was always pro-LGBTQ, had a lot of gay friends she'd jokingly call flaming gay, and they loved it too. The addition of that intensifying adjective, which I never really thought about too deeply for the longest time, eventually got me chewed out by one of my roommates in college.
What do you mean, flaming gay, huh? What is that supposed to mean?
Tim, I had no idea you hated America.
Shut up, Tantris. You know what I mean. That word is so inconsiderate of his identity. I can't believe you.
Tim, you know what else is inconsiderate?
What?
Your mom. Oh! But in all seriousness, I was perplexed. Flummoxed even. What's wrong with an intensifying adjective affirming what you already are? If someone called me flaming artsy as an artist myself, I wouldn't be mad. Tantris, you're flaming artsy, man. Damn straight, baby! Moreover, as a devout Nirvana fan who religiously read Kurt Cobain's journals, a man known for quotes like,
"If any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of a different color, or women, please do this one favor for us. Leave us the fuck alone. Don't come to our shows and don't buy our records."
I was still pretty confused. I mean, Adam, you're gay, right?
I prefer the term homosexual myself. It leaves no ambiguity.
The university administration talking about trigger warnings, limitations on Halloween costumes, and just assuming authority on speech irritated the living fuck out of me as a punk rocker. If you can't ask questions, you can't know the answers. But that in itself only served to piss off the people around me. But they never told me to my face. Instead, I'd always find out after the fact. So, Janet, how's Mike doing?
Oh, he hates you.
Is James planning on coming to the party this Friday?
Nah, he hates you too.
Oh, okay. One day it all finally came to a head with my roommate once again. We were discussing false accusations. Totally not a sensitive subject, but my roommate said that you should always trust a victim when they make any accusation because empathy is important. Well, of course empathy is important, I thought. You shouldn't be an asshole. But this is the law we're talking about here. You don't want to throw someone innocent in jail on a false accusation, right? So I thought, always? You're going to trust people who make accusations 100% of the time, even when you don't know if they're the victim yet? The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to confront witnesses and the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, so that we can support the presumption of innocence and ensure the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. And at this point, he called me a apologist, to which I thought, oh hell no, and said, what did you just call me? And raised my finger at him like Dolores Umbridge. Now mind you, I'm 6 feet tall and 135 pounds, so when he said,
"You're making me scared,"
I honestly didn't believe him. And at that moment, our third roommate walked in on the action and tried to break up our argument, but then he took his side. Now both of my roommates are looking at me with that, uh-oh, he's definitely not one of us kind of look. From that point on, the rumors at school started. Apologist became a regular word I heard from the grapevine, and for the remainder of that year, no one really talked to me the same way ever again, let alone for clarification, and instead probably just believed whatever the hell people were saying. Achievement unlocked, reputation ruined, all right. In high school, a common joke my friends and I used to make with each other when disagreeing was, "This is America, you have the right to be wrong." But apparently no one believes that anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. The 2020s are just wicked fucking gay, dude. And I don't mean happy. But wait till you hear my love for the word that rhymes with Bob Saget. I know that word has a dark history, but I like it. And as a homo myself, I'd probably use Saget more than the Westboro Baptist Church. If somebody cuts me off in traffic, I might say, "Put your blinker on, fucking Saget!" Now, if this person actually turns out to be gay, well, so be it. But he was a fucking Saget when he cut me off with no blinker just then. Even gay really isn't appropriate anymore to say. I was telling some acquaintances about my recent dabbling in the game of chess. I was explaining to them that when I was a kid with a PlayStation, Need for Speed, and one of those bitchin' Mad Cat steering wheels, I thought chess was gay. Why would anyone play this garbage when they could be drifting around corners in a Lamborghini? That's when I realized that I lost one of my listeners. He, a straight man there with his girlfriend, was apparently offended that a gay man used gay in the context of a dumb 9-year-old's opinion of chess. As he walked away, I sincerely thought, what a fucking saggot. The only time someone ever mentions freedom of speech anymore is when they're trying to shut you up.
The fewer people remember they have it, the fewer will end up using it.
Chapter 1. Bill C-63.
We need to sort out our beef one-on-one and not rely on things bigger than ourselves to do it for us. The depersonalization of our culture has also made this worse by asking larger entities to manage the interactions of normal people. Why do you think the classic Karen phrase is, "Can I speak to the manager?" I think overbloated HR departments are on a power trip these days thanks to all of this. And while the current use of buzzwords like misinformation and disinformation are nothing more than annoying, I've noticed they're used to discredit the accused more than the claims made themselves. And if we continue to normalize this trend, I worry the consequences will become more and more dire. But why even bother addressing the arguments of others when you can simply interpret them to mean anything that you want? That's what Canada's legislation is trying to do, and the new cancer up to the plate is Bill C-63. This extremely long document starts off with a palatable idea everyone can get behind, thrown into a blender with random, unrelated policy, all as an excuse for the government to get more legislative power. The wolf in sheep's clothing is that the bill intended to stop harm from children, though the number of clauses related to other more broad ideas is nothing short of alarming. Content that foments hatred, incites violence, incites violent extremism or terrorism. But what, for example, even is hate then? The bill defines a hate crime as anyone guilty of an offense motivated by hatred of race, national, and ethnic origin. But according to Jonathan Haidt's moral foundations theory, whoever is at the head of this legislation will enforce it through the color of their own lens. What one person defines as hate, another defines as rightful indignation. Left-leaning people tend to care about harm and fairness, while more conservative types add 4 more categories: loyalty, authority, sanctity, and liberty. Personally, I find myself in a strange spot in this theory because while I'm not obsessed with loyalty, authority, and sanctity, I will absolutely make the case that we should all value liberty. Because without it, every time you express a negative opinion this bill interprets as hate speech, you make yourself a target for your ideological opponent. Arrests made on the grounds of online speech are already being made. Just take a look at the UK.
Arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network.
This is why I say no government should have a hand in crafting legislation around speech for the sake of free moral and ethical debate. So let's take a look at what happens if you're found guilty of anything in this bill. A. Wear an electronic monitoring device if the Attorney General makes that request. B. Return to and remain at their place of residence at specified times. C. Abstain from the consumption of drugs except in accordance with a medical prescription, or alcohol, or any other intoxicating... What? You could literally be forced to wear a device that monitors your movements and restricts you to your home if you're guilty of certain types of speech. Just no. Please, God, no. Chapter 2, The Fact Checkers. The day fact-checkers become honest about correcting facts and not confusing them with approved opinions, I'll be a happier man. So let's take a trip away from Uncle Sam's backyard for a second, all the way to France. Enter Tatiana Ventose, a French journalist I've been following for a while now, blessed with the same jaded attitude towards the media as yours truly. Unlike the United States, with a constitution that supposedly keeps the legislator out of speech, many Western European countries aren't so lucky, finding themselves in the midst of the European Union's bureaucratic bloat, such that some governments aren't even what many would consider sovereign anymore. How does this relate to speech, though? Let's find out. So in 2005, French citizens voted against the proposed treaty establishing a constitution for Europe. This treaty aimed to give the European Union even more power, but the French referendum held on May 29, 2005, resulted in a rejection of the treaty by about 50% of the voters. This no vote stopped the ratification process and led to the treaty's abandonment, or so they thought. In response, EU leaders eventually drafted the Lisbon Treaty 2 years later in 2007, which incorporated several provisions from the 2005 treaty, but avoided presenting it as a formal constitution, thus avoiding the need for referendums in most EU member states. This is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. The EU basically said, fuck you, we're doing it anyway. So this based journalist named Tatiana made a little video about it, informing the public, saying, yeah, the Prime Minister of France basically signed away a portion of French sovereignty. No good. But you know what happened after she posted that? Oh, a fact check. So if you call out a government on its lies now, your calling out of their lie is a lie. As they say, when exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you are being ruled by criminals. Remember what George Carlin said, kids.
They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all.
I fear this kind of thing is coming to Uncle Sam's backyard sooner than we may realize. I just want to show a little bit of how laughable this article actually is. So let's do a quick dissection. This video, in which our internet user accuses the Lisbon Treaty of forcing countries, and therefore France, to abandon their sovereignty, is an opportunity to recall that the reality is much more nuanced. You know, when a fact-checking organization can't even debunk your claims on the basis of fact and simply argues the ideas in question are more nuanced, you're not engaging in fact-checking, guys. You're stating an opinion. But what's their source, you ask? Maybe they have a point. Oh, never mind. In conclusion, it's important to remember that the transfer to the EU of certain powers, which were previously the responsibility of the national level, was only possible because France is a sovereign state, and it consented to this transfer of power. Moreover, it is also possible to leave the European Union. France is sovereign because it gave away its sovereignty. You're free because you were free to give away your freedom. You have rights because you have the right to give them away. So Tatiana goes on a pretty funny tirade, which I've translated from French, and shows some digging involved that really goes to show the fact-checking networks are just organizations run by hyper-corrupt, wealthy people with specific agendas in mind. And she says, aren't you glad to know that the people writing these shitty articles to debunk so-called fake news are verified by an international network funded by Bill Gates and George Soros, and that this media outlet is directly partnered with European Union-funded organizations? Your money is being used to protect you from fake news, like the fact that the Prime Minister helped write the Lisbon Treaty. And these so-called independent fact-checkers are independent of whom? Not the EU, clearly. Maybe they're independent of democracy because they thrive in its absence. What more proof do you need that we're not allowed to have dissenting opinions? They're certified by the International Fact-Checking Network. This organization is part of the Poynter Institute, who received funding from, brace yourselves, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, George Soros Open Society Foundation, the Omidyar Network, the Charles Koch Foundation, and even the US government during the pandemic. They also have partnerships with mainstream media outlets and collaborations with Google News, Microsoft, TikTok, and WhatsApp. They're clearly not independent of the European Union because, get this, one of their partners is the European Media and Information Fund, which was established by the European University Institute. And guess who funds the European University Institute? The European Union, probably with part of our money.